To the Jake Feinberg Show. My guests today are Mary and Alam Khan, mother and son of the classical Indian musician Ali Akbar Khan. Ali Akbar Khan was the kind of leader our society so desperately needs today. He was a genius, but entirely understated. He believed in equal opportunity and access to an affordable education. He understood why the arts were integral to the depth of a society, as they are the pillars of our society. This is why people gravitated to this man. It is not mere coincidence that a great many bands from the Bay Area played benefit concerts to raise money for his music college. The work of Ali spans many decades and consists of compositions, writings, songs, pictures, and other material that needs to be preserved and archived. As an aside, I should also mention that his records have provided me great comfort during times of great pressure or imbalance in my life and have allowed my mind to be open and be free of anxiety. Therefore, this is part one of my homage to the Ali Akbar Khan School of Music in an effort to raise awareness and funds to uphold the sanctity of all of his works. The mission starts today, so without any further ado, Mary and Alam, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank
Hi.
you. Nice to be here.
Did you hear that opening? Were you able to
Yes.
hear? Okay, good.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yes.
Alam,
Thank you.
Yes, no problem. Alam, I wanted to ask you a question. When you were a child, how would your dad integrate Indian myth, religion, and philosophy into your early improvised music?
What was the first one? You said religion and philosophy. What was the first word?
How would your dad integrate Indian myth, storytelling,
Okay.
religion, or philosophy into your earliest improvise, however amateur it might have been, when you were really young? How would he integrate the myth and the religion and the philosophy into that music?
Well, when I was really young, we didn't. They weren't necessarily together. When he used to teach me when I was really young, I was not very. I wasn't really a serious student. So he would teach me pretty basic kind of things. You know, the scale, the fingering on the instrument, and pretty much keep it at that. Some small compositions, and there was not any improvisation at that age. It was more of just, here is a theme, and then here is a line, and he would want me to play it back exactly the way that he had taught it to me. So at that stage, it was more about learning the proper way of playing the instrument, trying to follow him as carefully and exactly as he was doing. When it came to the stories or the myth or whatnot, that was more of just talking, and more of when I was sitting with him, he would tell me stories sometimes about his own life, about the, sometimes the mythologies or the Hindu deities or Islamic kind of stories or whatever kind of stories it was. That was more of just father to son talking, or overhearing him talk to his other students that were more advanced and things like that. But it didn't really come into any improvisation until I became much more serious. The improvisational aspect is something for a much more advanced student. So in the beginning, it's all about composition, like Western classical music is all composition. Indian music has a great amount of it also in composition, and that's what a student has to do in the beginning, is learn lots of these compositions to be able to learn the concept of improvising within the structure of all the ragas.
I really want to take the audience deeper into this, because I guess my question is, what did your father consider to be a serious student? Because the way he was taught by your grandfather was at a totally different level. So at what point did you feel you became a serious student at the Sarod?
Well, he, but even when he died, he would still tell me, and I had been learning. I'm almost 29 now. I've been learning since I was 7, roughly. I didn't really start, I'd say, becoming a more serious student until I was 13 or 14 years old. And by that I mean serious meaning not only is the student becoming more dedicated. See, it's not just do you play well or not. To be able to play well, unless you're a prodigy or whatnot, you have to have a mental kind of switch happen where you have to want to dedicate your time. You want to practice. You listen to what your teacher says all the time, and you're thinking about music all the time, and you're pushing yourself. If you're not a serious student, you just take a few lessons because your parents make you do it, or you just play a few lessons and then you space out and do something else for a couple months or a year and touch your instrument every once in a while. So that's what I meant when I was young. I kind of did that more. I was not so serious. I played a little bit of guitar. I played, I listened to all kinds of music. I still do. But the sarod was not such a priority to me. I didn't really grasp. I don't think I was mature enough yet to hear the sound. I think that sometimes the sound can just grab the listener, but sometimes it takes, especially for children, it can take a while just for the tones of this instrument or this music to go into one's, into one's ears, touch one's heart or curiosity, and then eventually that kind of matures into something that's a deeper kind of respect for the music, a longing for the music. One day it just switched for me, and everything changed, and I thought about it all the time. I looked at my father's recordings as if I'd never heard them before. I looked at my father as if I didn't really know what I what I had all these years. I finally realized, and so I pretty much just started practicing a lot more, and from then on, the serious, how serious I was just began to grow. But he still considered me a baby, even when he died. He said, "You're just starting."
Right.
And I've been learning for 15-something years. You're just starting. So when I say a serious student, I mean someone that has learned most of the concepts of the music, has just surrounded himself or herself with the music for years by listening, attending concerts, the concepts, whatever, and then learning a good amount of composition and learning in the different rhythmic cycles, as we call talas, which we call talas. And, that makes a student more serious and be able to understand really the concept of improvising, because there's so much freedom within structure. So it's like, to get that freedom, you have to really learn the scape of the land. You have to really see all that, and then you can even begin to consider improvising and ragas, which are quite serious and actually pretty difficult to do.
Oh, believe me.
So that's what I mean by a serious student.
It's been, Alam, it's been like every time I'm a teacher by day, my day job, and every time that I'm struggling, whether it's some sort of political issue among the bureaucracy or with students, whatever it might be, when I have time, I throw on your father's, all on vinyl, all the records that he put, because there's something extremely profound about this classical Indian music that is, and I think it has something to do with the time signatures. There's no doubt about it, but there's something about, and maybe you can help me color this in a little bit, but there's something about the interaction between the sarod, the sitar, the tabla, where there's no silence, but it's not like sound that's taking up space. It's actually either you're getting a percussive sound or you're getting a string sound. Does that resonate at all to you? Because it allows the mind to completely relax.
Yeah, I mean there's breath. The thing is, when you're playing the instrument, my father would say, hold the note until until the note drains out. Like, our instruments have a lot of sympathetic, resonating strings on it. So, and it's all acoustic. So when you play a note, you have all of these strings that you don't actually play. We only play 4 or 5 strings, and then the rest are all resonating, that when you play one of the notes, it picks it up, and then it resonates throughout the whole instrument. So there's so much body to the instrument itself when playing, that it creates all these overtones, and it creates this kind of, bigger sound. But the thing is, when you're playing, you want it to sound like breathing. So like when you're, that's one example. He would say, like, when you're playing, let your notes ring out, and don't keep on playing, because sometimes the student and me, we always used to rush, and we used to play this and that and this and that, and he'd say, just let your instrument breathe a little bit, let the note ring out and whatnot. So I don't know if there's so much of a silence as it's the mood, it's the ambiance that the music creates. When you listen to my father, I mean, from my experience, it just takes you into a whole different, whatever you want to call it, mindset, or into a different kind of zone or whatever. But you don't think about anything else really. When he used to just, strum his instrument, you're just gone. And the thing is,
yes.
his music was really, and his music was really. When I said that I became a more serious student, is because all of a sudden it started to haunt me a lot more, and his melodic phrasing, his imagination when it came to playing the ragas. He had a way of expressing them. He had certain phrases he would show on the sarod that had never been done before. That were his sound alone. So those phrases and all those things, those were just haunting to me, and I'd think about them all the time, and I still do, and practice them. Someone could call them licks on a guitar or something like that, but I just, I practice those every day, just copying him. He used to tell me, follow me when I'm playing. He would play, and I'd be right behind him. He'd say, follow me like a shadow, but don't step on my shadow. Don't step on my head, so just be right there behind me with everything that I play, and play just like me, copy me. So I think the point of that is to copy your teacher or guru, how we call it in India, and copy them exactly until you embody it, and then you internalize it. You internalize it, and why their teacher's doing that and where that comes from, and then you can, continue to play more phrases like that, or make ones up on your own. So
we're talking to Alam Khan, the son of Ali Akbar Khan, who created the Ali Akbar Khan School of Music in Marin County, California, and we're also joined by his lovely wife Mary. Mary, it's so good to talk to you, and I just can't thank you enough for taking the time today. Did you have any comments? Did you have any comments as to what we've been talking about, or did you want to go? I have a different direction. If you want, we can go in that one.
No, it's enjoyable. I'm enjoying listening. No, I have no comment.
Yeah, well, I think what I wanted to ask you, Mary, is how you first met your husband.
I was a student at the college. I'm a tabla player, and I was studying for many years, actually, with Ustad Ali Raka, who is the father of Zakir Hussain. And Zakir Hussain was teaching at that time. He was the tabla master, so I was studying tabla, and that's how we met. I was a student.
So, and did you meet him when it was still the Asian Society for the Eastern Arts, or had it already?
No. He while he was with the Asia Society for Eastern Arts, ASEA, that was during 65 to 67. By 67, actually, his students had chosen to create a separate nonprofit school in his name, and that way he could continue. Actually, what happened was the students were all following him back to India, and it was too complicated having all of these American students come and need places to stay, and so they all decided that they would, his teaching was finished with ASCA, so they created the nonprofit in 67, and from 68 he started teaching here in Berkeley, and then quickly switched over to Marin County. So I came in 72. The school was basically 5 years old.
I have an opinion question for you, Mary, actually, because there was this huge appetite by Westerners to learn this music, and it seemed like he came and played a show at the Museum of Modern Art or in New York in 1955. or in New York City.
Right.
And then after that, so that was his first trip to the States. But then, in your opinion, what accounted for this sort of insatiable desire to learn this kind of music? I understand that, some very influential rock musicians, guys like George Harrison or Emil Richard, there was a lot of rock musicians that went to India to study this stuff. But back in the mid-50s, in the late 50s, why were their minds opening? What can you account for that?
Just from what I've read and observed over the years, I would just say that people became infatuated with India. It actually, or the East in general, the spirituality, all aspects of it. I've seen it in my years, seen it sort of ebb and flow. I mean, there seems to be kind of cycles where we're more interested in kind of like deeper searching in your soul. And so it just seems to kind of come in and out. And I would say probably in the 50s that was what was going on. There's a certain group, especially I would say probably in the bigger cities. So New York would have been sort of a hotbed for that, for studying, for researching the various religions and spiritual practices. That's what it seemed to me.
So in any event, he came back and opened his first school in Calcutta in 1956, but it was just too much logistically. It was too hard to figure out where to lodge all these Westerners that were coming over. There was just a mass migration over there to learn with him in India.
Well, by the time he had come to teach at ASCA, that was the situation. Yes, in the mid '60s. So people did keep following him over, but then it was a very energetic group of students, many of which are all still friends with us and friends with each other. We're a pretty big family over here, who got together and chose to try to create this nonprofit school. And they managed to do that all in 1967. And that just sort of solved the problem. They made it so that he could come here every year, spend a good portion of the year, and then tour, during sort of the winter months, go back to India and tour in the concert season, which is throughout our winter, and then come back and continue teaching. So it just seemed to be a natural sort of progression. Also, in India, the government actually wasn't so helpful financially, and so with the arts at that time.
Why was that?
So my husband has told us. I don't know. I really don't know the politics behind it, but I know that he would mention that it was difficult to have a school because they also needed help, with funding. And here came along this group of students that said, we'll set it up, and we'll bring you, and we'll figure out how to raise the funds to do it here. And there were so many of them, and they were so enthusiastic, and so he chose to do that, and it made a very comfortable place for him to be able to really teach. And he just loved teaching, along with performing. I think he's one of the most unusual musicians that has been able to sort of tackle both worlds so seemingly effortlessly, where he could go out and tour and then come back and sit very patiently and teach 6 classes a week. So they just made that a really good environment for him to be able to do that, and we all are certainly benefiting from that now.
Absolutely, and we're talking to Mary and Ali Khan. This is the Jake Feinberg Show, and we are in the process of highlighting, although I don't know if that's even the right word, continuing to breathe soul into the life of the Ali Akbar Khan School of Music. That it is one of my deepest I'm on a spiritual mission in a lot of different ways, guys. This is one of them. We got to go to a hard break. When we come back, we're going to do a whole lot more with both of you. So you guys just hang tight and we'll come right back, okay?
Sure. Sounds good.
Folks, this is Jake Feinberg. Every Friday night I get takeout from Bai Tong Restaurant, which serves Tucson's most authentic Thai cuisine. Pad Thais, fresh vegetables, and spicy Penang curry are my personal favorites, but every meal is sumptuous and cooked to order. Located at 4853 East Speedway Boulevard, Bai Tong serves compelling and affordable lunch specials as well as a full dinner menu. Bai Tong has ingratiated itself with the community by providing a peaceful environment to enjoy a meal with friends and family. Open weekdays for lunch 11 to 3, 5 to 9:30 for dinner Sunday to Thursday, until 10 on Friday and Saturday. So come down to Bai Tong Restaurant at 4853 East Speedway Boulevard to experience a taste of Thailand. When Coffee Times first opened, many wondered how this standalone coffee hut could survive among the beasts of Java lore. But some 10 years later, the answer is a resounding yes. Located at 3401 East Speedway Boulevard, Coffee Times specializes in many different drinks from mocha fraps to lattes to my personal favorite, the Ice Power Coffee. The best part about Coffee Times is their convenient two-way drive-thru, lunch menu, and supreme service. Not to mention their weekly special. So next time you're in the area, head over to Coffee Times on Speedway between Alvernon and Country Club. It will definitely kickstart your day. Folks, this is Jake Feinberg. Being a father, I know there is nothing more important than your child's health. And nobody is more dedicated to children's health in Southern Arizona than Dwayne Dyson. Dr. Dyson is Tucson's finest pediatrician and has devoted much of his professional career to improving the lives of children. Located at 4530 East Camp Fort Lowell, Dr. Dyson's resume speaks for itself. After doing his undergraduate work at Cal Berkeley, his schooling took him to Morehouse School of Medicine, where he mentored young adolescents about the need for pediatric physicians in Atlanta, and worked extensively with infants at the Texas Children's Hospital. The special thing about Dr. Dyson is that while his in-house care is exceptional, he also prepares families about what to expect once they leave the office. Dr. Dyson provides comprehensive and honest analysis for all of his patients. Dr. Dyson and his family live and work in Tucson because he knows how vibrant and diverse the community is. He is committed to procuring a robust family health center that can instill trust and alleviate the concerns of parents. Like I said, his resume speaks for itself. For more information, check out DysonPediatrics.com. It's that good. Welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show. That's off a CD From Father to Son. Ali Akbar Khan and his son Alam both playing the sarod. Mary and Alam, welcome back to the program.
Hi, thank you.
Hey, you know, I know. I hope you guys are really enjoying this as much as I am. But Mary, I gotta go back to something. I'm not gonna let you gloss over this because I think it speaks to the time that was what was occurring at the time. How, if you could go through the process of how his students created a nonprofit college in his name in, did you say 19 months? Back in 1960. Back in 1967.
No, in 1967.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. The process actually did not take that long. I mean, it was all within 1967. By September, they had their nonprofit status. How did they do it? I actually wasn't there.
You weren't there. That's true. Yes.
But I've reviewed the paperwork. Actually, I'm the director of the college, and I'm interested in the history of the college. I also have sort of been documenting the history of it, actually. So, I mean, frankly, they made their case for what they would be accomplishing and how the college would be financially stable and how it would run, and it was accepted. It really was as simple as that. I mean, there's a lot of paperwork involved, but other than that, the government accepted that they were going to do what they said they would do, and we certainly have over the years. I mean, we've been here 41 years now, teaching nonstop. You know,
I think what I was trying to. I should have phrased the question better. What was it? Why,
okay.
How much love did your husband have in his heart in order to be able to make so many people, affect so many people, including yourself? Talk about the love that he had and why his school was and is just so vital to our and all his recordings as well.
Well, I think the greatest factor, I know for me, and I would say a lot of people have commented on this, was when you actually came into his presence, you were visibly or physically moved, more so than I've ever experienced with anyone. He had a calming quality, and at the same time, a very vivacious personality in a very quiet way. And I know that might sound just kind of confusing,
yeah,
but
it's funny that vivacious. Yeah.
Well, he just emanated this energy, but he was a very calm person. And so, and then immediately when he started to teach, you just knew you were in the presence of something great. And I know for a lot of the students, even if, frankly, they could see after a number of years they weren't going to be great musicians, or didn't have the talent or maybe the time, but to be in the presence of someone who had that kind of energy and knowledge is unusual. And I think a lot of people, I'm not going to say there's a lot of men like that or women in the world. I can't say that. I don't really know, but I think if someone comes across someone that affects them deeply, they tend to want to stick around that person and learn. And that's certainly what it was for me. The same thing went, though, with my tabla teachers, Ustad Al-Araka, and Zakir Hussain was very young when I started. He was only 21. But there was a sense of mastery, and that they had this information, and they were so willing to give it, and they were so encouraging to male and female, and just if you can do it, I'm here and I'll give it to you. And that was just, I think, just so attractive to so many people. And then the music is so interesting. It's so, I think the mixture of all of it, you knew you were jumping into something that you could do forever. It could last you your whole life. And that was just attractive.
That was beautiful. Alam, I don't mean to be ignoring you, my friend. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. No problem.
Great. I wanted. It's a balancing act, but I want to do it real bad. So, I have a question for you. Like a song. I'm just going to throw out a word. A raga, like Raga Malika. Okay, the word Malika, is that a time of day? Is it a mythical character? Is it some spiritual message? Because when I look at some of the songs, I know obviously what a raga is, but then what does Malika stand for? What is that about?
Malika, it's actually really not I've only seen that used one time in my life. That raga. It's actually funny you picked that one. That's probably that traditional music of India recording.
It's the the soul of Indian music. Yeah, the soul. It was from 1965 when this is according to the liner notes on the back of this album. And maybe Alam, can you tell me if this has changed or not? It says in 1965 it says the majority of the Indian population is illiterate. Their knowledge of the vast panorama of Indian myth, religion, and philosophy outstrips their knowledge, the knowledge which similar primitive people possess in Western cultures. Is illiteracy that high in India today? I know there's still a ton of poverty, but is illiteracy still very high?
I mean, I wouldn't be able to comment on that. I don't even know why that's on that album. That has nothing to do with my dad. I'm sure that was just a record label that was making some India kind of
generalization
recording, and they just put some. I don't know why they would put that in there. I mean, neither of us would have any comment on that. I mean, yes, there's tons of illiteracy, but I mean, I can't imagine it's that bad. No, I don't know. I shouldn't make any comment.
No, it's fine.
You
because
mean you take a country that's that big as that? There's bound to be lots of illiteracy and things like that. But whatever.
Hey, listen. I totally I understand. I think that this is the second time that I've read liner notes to musicians, where it's obviously been taken out of context. So it does show the structure of blending corporate trying to sell an album and exaggeration vis-a-vis truth. But I didn't mean to get distracted. Raga Malika is on that album.
So the Malika doesn't. It actually just means we have something called a rag mala, which means like a mala. It's like kind of like a garland of flowers or whatnot. So if you make a mala out of ragas, just picture that. There's a bunch of different ragas all together. So when you're playing a raga, you'll pick a traditional rag, have that be the focus. All the notes will come from that raga. The movements will come from that. The moods expressed will come from that raga. But then you use that raga as a stepping stone to venture off into a bunch of different ragas. So you basically bring all of these different ragas, regardless of times of day, because all the ragas are supposed to be played for certain times of the day only. So this way you can play all the different ragas that you want within your main rag that you choose. It's kind of confusing, but you just have to, when you hear it, you would understand. So it's more of you get to play out a bunch, but you don't, because each time you switch, and like you can play some notes that are really not in the scale, like you'll play some minor notes or sharp note or whatever, and you'll totally venture out of the raga that you've started. But it's all right to do it in this context. But once you switch out, then you have to follow the rules of the next raga. As you see, there's like a lot of ragas that are very closely related. All the ragas are like brothers and sisters. So when you're playing, you come very close to getting into the territory of another raga. And it's just a minute, subtle phrase or bending of a note or jumping and skipping of a note or whatever that keeps you in the raga that you're playing. And it's just, a skip of the mind or a falter or whatever, then you'll go into a different rag. So we learn all of these ragas so that we know how to play and stay true to what we're playing and not cross into another one's kind of territory. So it's like really, it's very fine work. It takes a lot of learning and whatnot. And to get back to the Malika is just another way of saying rag mala, basically. You could also say that it's even faster, like you keep on jumping more fast. But I know that recording, the real raga is pilu, in that it's rag pilu with rag mala. But probably since my father had already released a rag pilu with a rag mala, he chose to call it malika, or somebody that was involved with the recording chose to call it that. Just as my father has recorded the famous traditional rag Darbari Kanra a bunch of times, he's also released records that call it Kanra Prakar because he already released it, or Darbari, and then he spells it instead of Kanra, Kanra, he spells it like Canada with a K, Kanada, Canada. It's a different way of pronouncing it a little bit. So sometimes those names are just put there to kind of also make different record labels, different things like that. They want not the same name of the rag.
Exactly.
But as musicians, it's just like if you're a musician and you're playing Beethoven or Mozart or Bach, you're going to be playing the same piece. Everybody plays just the same pieces, from thousands of musicians, every recording. It's all the same thing. Same as us, we all play the same ragas, but since we improvise a lot, they're always different. They're always expressed differently. The moods, the way the musician plays, everything is different. It's like, I don't have a good analogy right now, but every time it can be completely different. It's like if you go to New York in the wintertime, or you go there in the summertime, the whole experience can be different. The landscape can be completely different. You go anywhere, it's like seasons. So the ragas can be completely all the experience can be different. So that's pretty much what that is. Malika is just it's just a different name for rag mala, basically. But the names of the ragas are there's different variations of them, and so people use the spellings differently. That's all.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. You kind of answered this question in your answer, but what are the subtle differences? For instance, like an early morning raga, is there, as opposed to an evening raga? Is there? Is it a tempo? Is it rhythm? Is it dynamic? What or is it? I don't know. Could you? Is there? They're just like you said. They're just like brothers and sisters. So they're all sort of familial, but they have their own kind of characteristics.
Yeah. Well, we have 10 major scales in Indian music, which we call thats. And these 10 scales, we have the major scale, we have minor scales, whatever. There's Western classical, or whatever you call it, counterparts to all this. There's or what do you call it? There's a name for it in Western terms, each of these scales, which I don't know because I'm not trained in Western classical music or whatever. So each of these 10 scales, all of the thousands or however many ragas you want to say there are, they all are derived from these 10 scales. So that really doesn't mean much because a lot of ragas can all use the same notes, but it's the way you ascend and descend in the scale. So it has a very specific carved out kind of structure of going up and down in the scale. A lot of them don't go straight up. A lot of them curve a lot. They go up and then down and then up and then down, and until they get to the octave above. So and that's called bakra, which means curve. So a lot of the scales are curving. And the scale itself sometimes will show the whole raga. Some ragas are very small. They can only be played for a little bit. There's only so much variation one can do. Some ragas are much bigger in scope. So, for a morning raga, a lot of morning ragas have a lot of minor notes. Same as like throughout the day when you get to evening, the minor notes come back in. I don't know, it's something about the vibrations. We also have something called shrutis or microtones. So like in Middle Eastern music and things like that, you'll find that they rest on these notes that would sound dissonant to another kind of music. Like for me, when I listen to that, it sounds dissonant if you play it to whatever we tune to C. That's our tonic note. So when you listen to that kind of music, they kind of stay on these notes that sound dissonant to us. We're like, well, that's in between these notes. For us, what we do is we show it kind of like vibrato or whatever, but not in a different way. It's more smooth, and it has different degrees. Each raga has a different way of showing the microtones and notes, or between the notes. But you never stay on them. You're always moving. So my father's example of that is saying that it's like a lotus flower floating on the water, but no water will get onto the lotus flower or inside of it. It's just floating like that. So the note should be like that. And each raga, it could take you 12 years, my father used to say, to play one note correct in these ragas, to play the correct microtones, the correct shrutis of that one note. So like that, the ragas are very close because they share the same notes and whatnot, but it's the phrasing, it's the heart of the raga, like the phrase that will come again and again and again and let you distinguish that it's that rag. And then, when people play faster passages, things like that, a lot of the times the ragas can kind of blend together, and it could be many different ragas. It's about what you do to bring it back to show that it's that specific melody, that it's that raga. It's about bringing it back to the heart of it, about maneuvering around so that you can keep on coming up with new variations within it, but always keeping it where it is, always showing its face. So I mean that's what it is. And the way the music was created was the vibrations or whatnot, and the way the sun is, the moon is, the seasons, all of that plays a factor in the way the notes are shown throughout the day. So morning ragas have a certain kind of sound. A lot of them, sometimes they'll be focused a lot more on a certain note than afternoon ragas or evening ragas. They all have distinguishable traits. And I mean, those are the really subtle things that you need to learn, how each note is expressed and things like that. And the shrutis and microtones, that's what all the training comes in. And that's where all the composition comes, and you have to learn lots of compositions. And then eventually it starts to make more sense, But in the beginning, it's pretty difficult. You'll be, well, that just sounds the same, or whatnot. You know,
Right.
the heart of the rock, it sounds different, but the notes itself, it's like, so that's the deeper learning. That takes a lot of time, and that's not something that can be taught very quickly. You know, your ear can start to, you know, your ear needs, the sound needs to work its way slowly into you. You know, and it takes a lot of time. You have to mature your ear. You have to heighten your ear. It's that fine tuning of your ear and mind. You know, so.
How much of your father's playing was shaped by his upbringing? As far as I speak to a lot of jazz musicians from the early '70s, and most of the guys are still playing today. But it seems to me like they had a, you know, speaking about their race in our country, they were clearly oppressed, and that music is what spawned that. And I'm just wondering, the sound that your father was able to cultivate and the music that he was able to make came from his upbringing. I'll throw this question out to either one of you. Did he face more challenges? Was his life more difficult than somebody who might be growing up or like myself, who was born in the late '70s, or Alam, maybe you were born in the mid '80s? Did he have to overcome more, and so his sound was shaped by that upbringing?
Colin, you want to answer that?
Well, yeah. I mean, his upbringing was, he had no choice in anything in his upbringing. His choice was, I mean, his upbringing was that he had to learn. You know, it was kind of militaristic almost. His father was, you know, one of the greatest musicians of India of all time. You know, actually, I would say in existence. You know, in history, he was one of the most amazing people. The people are not born like him very often. I mean, his whole life was to learn music. He trained and groomed, I mean, some of the finest musicians in India, and some of the most innovative musicians, revolutionary musicians that people copy to this day, and have set the whole kind of groundwork for the music, which everybody bases their stuff on, whether they say that's them or not. We all know where the music came from. And because of my grandfather, really, these musicians have this sound. Through my father, through musicians like Ravi Shankar, Nikhil Banerjee, my father's sister Annapurna Devi. These kind of musicians are the ones that have set the. I mean, this is what everybody bases their music off, basically. So,
but he was somewhat tyrannical, though.
He wanted to basically pass on his entire life's worth. It was said he lived to be 100 or older than 100.
Right.
110 is what they say, but nobody really knows. He wanted and he ran away when he was 8 years old to study this music. So basically, he spent his whole life doing this. He went through so much hardship, so much sacrifice, and eventually, you know, attained salvation and kind of liberation through the music. He treated it as a spiritual practice. It was more of like his religion, his life, his spirituality. Everything was music. He was music. So he wanted to pass everything he had learned, all the sacrifices he had made, all the different teachers he had studied with, all the hardships he'd had to go through. He wanted to pass it all on to his son. So my father had to bear that. And, you know, for 20 years, he was forced to practice up to 18 hours a day. My father would always tell us up to 18 hours a day. No childhood, no friends. You know, put in a dark room and made to practice, and then, you know, woken up in the middle of the night to practice and to be taught. I mean, his whole life was music. So when he left in his 20s, my father was given a job as a court musician to the Maharaja, the king of Jodhpur in Rajasthan, the area of India. So it's by Jaipur. So he was the court musician in his 20s. So, I mean, that was his first taste of freedom, you know. And then from then on, he moved to Bombay, to Calcutta, and then eventually to America, all with his father's blessing. His father wanted him to spread the music, you know, as far as the sun can reach, as far as the light can shine, like something like that, he said to my dad. So he did just that. But where his music came from, I mean, he had no choice. He learned so much, he must have soaked in so much from my grandfather, and also he was at a time where there were many great musicians like my grandfather alive still. So he was always, when he would go to a concert, or when he was playing a concert, he'd be probably playing after some of these, legendary musicians. So the music was so rich at that time period. It was so rich. And, I think basically the thing about my father is he had an imagination. His imagination of portraying these ragas was something that's, I would say, I don't know, it's unparalleled for me. It's different. It's unique. So I think, I don't know whether it's I can't really comment on how that happened for him. I know his life was music, and he was taught that since he was a little kid, and all he did his whole life was music, and teach and play and perform, and that imaginative spark that's in him that's unique. I think that's just something that grew out of his training from his father, and whatever, maybe not having any choice to be free, most of his life and things like that allowed him to see the freedom within the music, the structure within the music, the discipline, the strictness. Maybe that was his way to be free. So I don't know. It's a big subject. I don't know if the times and the way the country had much to do with the music, because the music is so ancient.
Right.
A lot of jazz music and things like that, they reflect the time more.
Uh-huh.
This music is ancient. So yes, people like to say it reflects the time, and modern musicians are doing that a lot by incorporating fusion stuff and wearing their clothes or their hair a certain way. But my father's time, those people, they weren't really about that so much. Maybe some of the sounds, maybe some of the things like that, or a lot of film music was based off of classical ragas, so you'd hear a lot of the licks they were playing in the film music. So that's the only kind of thing I would say that would be around reflecting the time. Otherwise, this is ancient music. This is just a fresh take on it. It's just a new person's imagination stretching it.
But he clearly, like when you were younger and you were you had not yet found the path to the love of the music, and you just weren't really ready. It wasn't like he didn't hold resentment against you for that. Whereas his father was, you're going in a dark room, you're going to practice, you're going to wake up at night, you're going to practice, you're going to learn this music, you're going to love it. And he probably wound up liking it. It wasn't like he projected that same...
Well, I can answer that.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Because Alam didn't, being his partner and having the small children, he was very clear that he was not going to do to his children what his dad did to him. That was just, that's how it was. So he opened the door for them, he offered it, and was there to teach them. I brought Alam to class. He would do the exercises in class. For a little bit. The whole thing in India with children is actually they encourage them with small bits, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, and it grows and grows. So he would not force them to play. He just offered it. And that was his whole focus with the children, was that he would not force them. It was a big, big thing for him, because he had to really overcome a lot of emotions, with his father and the way he was raised. If he did not play something properly, if he hadn't practiced, if he wasn't attentive, he might get hit. These were serious situations for a young person. And so he had to overcome a lot, and he didn't want that relationship with his children. So he didn't force them.
Did he?
He said he didn't. He said he didn't really understand. He said he didn't really. He didn't understand. Didn't feel any love from his father for most of his life. He never even looked his father in the eyes until he saw pictures of him later on in life. That's the kind of disciplinary. That's the kind of relationship that they had. But he realized when he was a lot older that how much love his father did have for him and why he did what he did in his training and that harsh upbringing was to pass on this music. And his love was so strong for my father, but he had to be strict like that. That was his approach. And frankly, it worked because there is never going to be another Ali Akbar Khan. So, and he was not as harsh with other musicians, but who were also great, but they weren't Ali Akbar Khan. So, but my father realized, and that his father did love him, and he also, began to love his father a lot more later on in life, in which he could go back and have a relationship. So I think music for him was his way of expressing himself because he couldn't speak so much when he was younger. His way of showing love, his way of asking why, probably, and his imaginative way of expressing himself. The wonders that he couldn't really experience and the unknown things that most people get to, the excitement of life and youth and things like that, which I'm sure he experienced in his 20s to some extent, things like that, and the rest of his life. But there was a lot of wonder in his music, a lot of wonder and things like that. So his music was his voice. That was really his way of expressing everything. That's the magic. That's the magic in it.
He always said that. He always said that I don't talk much, I talk through my music. And I fully agree with you all, and I think anybody would. You so much hear a voice in his playing. Unusual.
Alam, I wanted to ask you, again, this is a little bit of an overarching question, but what do you think is, in your mind, what's the most important thing that is going on at the school, at the music school today, and what needs to happen in order for things to continue to move in an open-minded and in a progressive fashion?
What we need is just more people to become interested in the music and want to study. Our college, it operates off of our students, and we don't have as many students at all as in my father's time. So it's a little difficult, especially Sorode. I would really like Sorode to become more popular as far as listeners go. Sitar has always been the, pop culture reference, and that's what people want to hear. That's India, is the sitar. Sitar is a beautiful instrument, but the Sorode also, the one thing my father didn't do is bask in the limelight or try to chase after fame and name, and so that's, in one way, the Sorode didn't get as much recognition as the sitar. It could have, but it didn't, because my father chose to teach and play his music the way he wanted to, in the context he wanted to, without kind of doing any kind of selling out or adapting to a different kind of audience. He played his music the way he was taught by his father. So the thing is, getting the Sorode, my father was such a colossal figure, his sound reached out enough. But for people like me, the younger generation, to make people hear the sound of the Sorode, things like that, become interested in it and study, that would be great, because I can teach Sorode. I can teach people the music, and they can play it on sitar, violin, guitar, whatever they want. But I can't teach someone how to play these instruments necessarily, because I haven't been trained in that. My specialty is Sorode.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the problem is the students. So that's what we're doing right now. I'm trying to perform more concerts and draw attention back to the Sorode. I work on some collaborations and things like that with some bigger named artists and things to get the sound of the Sorode out there more. And then, as long as I and my father's, advanced students that are also teaching at the school, as long as we all work hard and just stay on track of what we're doing, there's nothing else we can be doing. And the archive project, which is a huge thing, which is archiving all the 40 years of my father's music to turn into a public library, that's the first time anything like that's happened for a musician of his stature. in Indian classical music. So people will basically be able to access video, audio, written notation, all like 40 years worth of my father. And so the big thing in India is this music wasn't written down so well. South Indian music was very meticulous and written down very well. North Indian music, not as much. So that's why all of these musicians, they can't, people have to learn through their disciples. They can't actually access that musician. So this will fix that right now. And if we get it finished, the archive, we're still trying to find funding for it, then people will always, for the rest of the time, be able to learn directly from Ali Akbar Khan. Of course, he won't be there in the flesh, but it's the closest thing to that. And that will ensure that the music is there, whether or not we, do as much as we can. We'll do as much as we can, but if it's not enough, it'll always be there, and it will outlive us all. So the music will really never die, and people will have a chance in the future.
Alam, I think that you sell yourself short because I understand that the archive is important. Actually, it's vitally important. But you are the descendant, so it is now. I already see what what you need to do in order to provide a path for younger kids to become exposed. You said the problem is students. I think the problem is getting kids to be able to hear this stuff. And I feel in my heart, I will express to you that your gift is that you have an ability to articulate. Like your father's, he spoke through his music, but you can speak through your music and you are articulate. And I believe that it is your goal, your mission, to actually take the sarod, take the Indian music to public schools throughout this country, and to be able to work with the music instructors at these schools in order to integrate some of this stuff into the curriculums. I believe that is absolutely imperative, and that if you do love to teach, that is how you will break through this sort of whatever mainstream media, culture, music provides to our society. There's no substance to it. So the goal is to try to find a way to break through that, and you will have to do it in a grassroots campaign. Call me crazy, but I've been dreaming for 5 months now, and I have been I believe very strongly that is something that you should down the road when you are. I mean, you are 29 now.
Well, we're already actually doing that. I've been doing that as well as the other students at the school. We've been doing that in schools program for a couple of years now. And my father was very articulate. He did talk quite a bit. Every lesson he gave us tremendous amounts of analogies. We could write books on it. And so a lot of the stuff I say is exactly what he would say, except that my thing is I'm American born, and I played other musics too. So people can relate to me as a youth of America also, where they can't my father. But he had a very beautiful way of expressing what he was doing through the music. Even though he says that's his voice, he would talk for hours sometimes if you got him going. And it would be he was a very good speaker, but he used to say that. But
Mary, go ahead. Mary, step in for a minute.
Jump in for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. We do receive grants, ongoing grants, and we do have yearly programs in schools, in public schools, specifically public schools. So that is something we've been doing for the past 7 years around the Bay Area, of course, so locally. My husband used to, before the CAC, the California Arts, I can't think of the other word, but our state art organization, before it lost its funding from the government, they used to do a matching situation, and my husband used to go into universities all over California and do lecture demonstrations. So that's something the school has done for years, and we will definitely continue that. So I agree with you 100%. To get a program in public schools that's a little more integrated into their music system, that's a whole other level. But we do go in regularly and offer free programs and lecture demonstrations from kindergarten through 12th grade. So
right. No, and
great. I agree.
I will just continue. You had Alam's grandfather, and then his son Ali Akbar Khan. Now Alam, the being physically alive, being present, and being able to spread love, and I mean in like rural Georgia or North Florida. Or get out of the bay. Get out of the bay. I understand it's travel expenses, and I realize that this is somewhat Pollyannish. But being in the Bay Area is it's. I mean, it's, as they say in China, it's the Golden Mountain. Okay, it's a beautiful place. But I know that, especially in this day and age, and I think, with the tempo of our society at such a high clip, everyone's moving so fast. They're in these sort of technology bubbles. They're sort of in their own worlds. They don't know what they're longing for, but when they hear it, they will know it. And so I will do whatever I can. And I mean, I just believe that there are, especially in the southeastern part of our country, which is really struggling regionally. In so many different ways, to become more, I don't want to demean them, but to become more evolved and to appreciate this music and to understand that there is such soul within the music, and that it can be so helpful to people's anxiety. I mean, I seriously think it could act as, I mean, it almost acts as an antidepressant, although I don't want to go that far. But I want you guys to know, we're going to have to wrap up this portion of the interview, but I would like to come back and do this again sometime in the future if it's agreeable to both of you.
Sure, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
thanks for having us.
I hope you enjoyed it. I can't, Alam, I think you did a great job explaining some of the technical aspects of classical Indian music, and it's not easy, but I believe. I'm going to put this on my Facebook page. I'm going to put it on all the jazz forums that I'm on, and I'm just going to continue to relentlessly pursue this mission that I'm on. Like Mary, you said, that when you would come into, you'd be physically moved or in some way spiritually moved by the presence of Ali, and I feel that. I don't know what's going on, but I'm being guided in this one direction. So I just feel real strong that I have to keep going forward, keep moving in a progressive mind. And I think what I'm really concerned about, like I said, the bottom line of my show is that I will never allow the fine arts or the open-mindedness of our country to go away. And I feel like through the Ali Akbar Khan School of Music and through you guys, I can cultivate that, and I can continue to find the kindling, to build the fire, to keep moving forward and progressing as a human being and spreading that to other people. So I can't thank you guys enough for taking the time, and I look forward to doing this again. Okay?
No, thank you.
All right, guys.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
Appreciate it.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right, you too. Bye.
Bye.